New Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
This is News Talk.
Hello there, welcome along to Off the Ball on this Monday evening. So we have lots to get through. Sean O'Shea and his heroics. A lot of people said it was Brian Sheehan-esque, so we thought, well, let's speak to the man himself. Brian Sheehan's going to join us on GAA after 9 o'clock. Colin Boyle as well on a glorious, extraordinary, drama-filled second half in particular at Croke Park yesterday, and we'll talk about the weekend at large as well. So Brian Sheehan, Colin Boyle on the way. There was the small matter of Ireland beating New Zealand again. That's just what we do these days, it seems. So Matt Williams, Rory O'Connor are on the way on Monday Night Rugby, and then very interesting couple of weeks at Wimbledon. So Caitlin Thompson will run the rule on Wimbledon 2022. That is all on the way. 53106, the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormack, good evening, sir.
Joe, how are you? You well?
Yeah, very well, very well. And Dave McIntyre, I saw, Dave, you tweeted you were drained after the second half at Croke Park yesterday. It was almost as if you were playing.
Almost. In fact, some would say I put even more of an effort than some of the players did, but I was drained. I know it's a 70-odd minute game, and it's, in terms of the games I tend to do, it is the shortest of them all, of all the codes I cover, but it was just a suffocating atmosphere. It was the first time I've been part of a commentary where Croke Park is full since 2019. It was a very warm pitch side, and it was an incredible occasion, and it was just a pleasure to be in the commentary position with Sky for the afternoon. And what a game myself and Donaghy got to work on together. It's one I'll remember for a long time. Just absolutely brilliant.
What an electric moment when Costello's goal went in and we realised, actually, we're going to get a bit of a game here. Because I thought at half-time, Richie, it was looking very ominous.
Yeah, it's that period in the second half. I think the 42 at that stat up was like between the 43rd and 73rd minute, Kerry scored 2 points. That's an awfully long time in an All-Ireland semi-final to be going barren and against the side who you know are going to come at you. I think, I don't want to say we rode off Dublin earlier on in the season, but there is certainly a sense that they'd come back to the pack, and I think that's held true. But they are still a very good football side, and if you give them any inch of wiggle room, they will come and hammer you. And if you give them the amount of ball that Kerry did in the second half yesterday, you're asking trouble, and you're asking to bring trouble upon yourselves, and that's going to be a massive lesson for Kerry to have learned. It's a great exam for them to have gone through ahead of an All-Ireland final, particularly against a Galway team who are happy enough to soak up possession and be patient in the first 15-20 minutes of a game, as you saw in their last two outings. But it just made for a brilliant finale, and to get it, it's very rare in sports that we do get that one moment where the sides are level and it comes down to one last kick. But just between the jigs and the reels of everything playing out yesterday, I think we were lucky enough to get that. And people always say, it was Colin O'Rourke, or I think saying afterwards, saying, it was very unfair to see a game settled by one score, would like to have gone to extra time. This is exactly what people want. You mightn't want it if you're a Dublin fan, right now or in the immediate aftermath, but this is what you want in sport, is you want these last minute clinchers from God knows how many yards to win it, and God, we got that yesterday.
Yeah, we sure did. So the way the Sean O'Shea moment is supposed to go, Dave, is that the breeze is into him and he knows he's struggling for distance, well, you would think, and he either snatches at the ball a touch with his technique and it goes left and wide, or he doesn't make the full distance. I mean, it was... And Sheehan personified, he's on the show later on, but it was Brian Sheehan personified in that it was such a languid kicking style. It takes real nous and technical prowess to steady yourself, to not snatch at that kick, to let it flow. And I mean, he must have started that, 15 metres? Because he knew with that wind, once it started to turn, it was going to really turn. And he must have started that 15 metres wide of the post. It was just extraordinary kick.
Yeah, it really was. It was, I think I said in commentary, it was one of the greatest frees we've ever seen in the history of Croke Park. There's a couple of nuances. It wasn't a classic game by any means. It was more akin to the 2011 and 2015 All-Ireland finals rather than the 2013 and 2016 All-Ireland semi-finals. So it won't go down in the annals of the greatest games, but it certainly was one of the greatest finishes. And in some ways, it was a bit of a shot to nothing for him. I would have been very interested to see how he would have delivered that strike had it been to send the game to extra time. So in other words, if Kerry don't score that free, they're out. Obviously, all of the pressure is on him then. Nobody expected him to score that. I thought it was outside his range, but the ball was still travelling when it went over the crossbar. I mean, had it been another 15 metres out, he probably still would have nailed it. It was just such a strike purity and precision and the timing that is required. It didn't even look like he was really straining. It was just his usual style. I'd say he felt very little pressure because of the stakes were a little lower than that. He knew Kerry would go to extra time if he'd missed it. But then at the same time, they'd surrendered a 6-point lead against a team that have had their number for the last 10 years. And it would have been another situation in which this group of Kerry players were struggling to get over the line. In the end, they fell over the line. I think this would have set them back years had they lost that game yesterday from the position they were in. And I suspect, and I'd say Dublin fans fear this might be the case, in 10 years' time, we will look back on that Sean O'Shea free as Kerry's Cluxton moment, the catalyst for several years of sustained success, because I think they've got a severe monkey off their back now, having beaten their nemesis and come through real adversity in that last quarter of the game. And it will really stand to them now because they've lost all the really big games they've played in the last 3 years. They lost to Cork in 2020. They lost that replay in 2019. They couldn't get out of the group stage of the Super 8s in 2018. Lost to Tyrone in their first real test last season. It's a Kerry team that just don't win the big games, and they haven't shown that they can take the pressure when it's at its highest until they fell over that line yesterday. And under Jack O'Connor, I suspect this is going to bring them on an awful long way. And that could be the turning point for this group of Kerry players. The vast majority of their superstar players, their top players, are in their early to mid-20s. So, I mean, these are the peak years ahead of them.
They are poised. They are certainly poised. Dave McIntyre here, Richie McCormack here, Joe Molloy here, 53106, the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. We'll start the news round, which is brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And there's live football this evening, Rich.
Yeah, Northern Ireland's hopes of making the quarterfinals of Women's Euro 2022 appear all but over. Kenny Shields' side went down 2-0 to Austria in their second Group A game in Southampton this evening. The North complete their campaign in the group against England. That's on Friday and also at St Mary's. Meanwhile, England are unchanged for their meeting with Norway tonight. There is an 8 p.m. start at the Amex.
It's been a really good start to the tournament, and I mean, there's something lovely as well about the familiarity of these games on at old stadiums. For instance, watching Sweden against Netherlands at Bramall Lane at the weekend was kind of a nice treat. So we will keep you updated across the course of the evening. And then Nathan Collins, we were wondering.
Yep. Looks like he's going back to the Midlands. Wolves are in advanced talks to sign Nathan Collins from Burnley. The Republic of Ireland defender is expected to command a fee in excess of €24 million. 21-year-old Collins only joined Burnley last year from Stoke, but he won a slew of new admirers with his Ireland performances last month. Manchester United were believed to be one of those teams involved. A bit from them, not forthcoming, but Wolves are about to lay the cash down for the Wicklow man.
Wolves, Dave, thoughts?
Yeah, very good club, very solid club, a club that have made huge progress since their return to the Premier League. And I think it was only a matter of time before someone came looking for him. Burnley isn't the place for him now that they've gone down and they're really struggling financially. And one wonders what the future is at that club. And they'll be delighted they've been able to get a fee as large as that for him. It's still all about potential for him. He's had a couple of great moments with Burnley. He's obviously had some very impressive performances with Ireland during the summer. But you just hope that he continues to make the progress he has been making. And if so, he could be one of our best players for the next 10 years or so. I think he's a Premier League player and he's gone straight back there. He hasn't had to spend any time in the Championship. And congratulations to him for a move that he richly deserves. I just hope he continues to build.
Clifford of Freak says Tony, 53106. Dave says, not Dave McIntyre, Dave says Dublin win that game with Con. I mean, they may very well win that game with Con. You'd have to think so. And can we give mention of James McCarthy's point? A monster, says Greg.
What a score that was.
That was just something.
I mean, in so many ways, outside of the skill involved and the precision of technique he brought to that score, the moment he delivered it as well, and on the back of what he had done prior to that, and then indeed afterwards, some of the 50-50s he won the next kick out, he batted the ball down for Kieran Kilkenny that led to the equalising score. Just a gargantuan performance from a man who played the full game on the back of very little football in the last couple of months. And you know, there are arguments to be made that he's Dublin's greatest ever player given what he's achieved and the way he's continuing to lead them. But if you'd fear from a Dublin point of view that Johnny Cooper taken off after 43 minutes, Dean Rock well past his best. I'm not sure how many touches he got from play yesterday, but certainly fewer than 5. The inside forward line offered very little. Costello had quite a poor game despite the brilliance of his goal. And yes, Con transforms that attack, But these players, these great players of the last 10 years, are going to continue to melt away into the distance over the next couple of years. And you just do not see the replacements. It's a very weak Dublin bench at the moment. And while they probably will make an All-Ireland semi-final each year and get to the odd final and win the odd one, they're an awful long way from being any kind of a dominant side. I mean, that appears to be years away now.
That's going to be very interesting to see, because certainly, many of us were predicting Dublin would win 5-6 out of every 10 All-Irelands given population and resources. So, I mean, there's a degree of having to reevaluate that now, potentially, because it does seem as if it was an awesome standard, but that does seem as if the talent pool has dried up a touch. On Con, I mean, he does transform that situation, though, because I was in here, Dave, in studio, so I didn't hear the commentary or what Kieran Donaghy made of it, but there was a moment when you mentioned Dean Rock there, maybe not quite where he was. One of the only moments in the first half that Dublin kicked the ball inside. Dublin had a huge amount of possession between 45 and 60, 65, and just going back and forth and not kicking the ball in really at all. And they did once early on, and Dean Rock didn't really have that explosive burst to get ahead of his man and get to the ball, and they didn't kick it in again. Paddy Small's introduction seemed to liven things up a touch, and that seemed to open out the space an awful lot. So you do suspect that Con in there, and we've seen it even in this championship, you do suspect that Con in there completely changes the nature of what a defence have to deal with.
100%. He's a very complete inside forward, and the same guys as David Clifford. He can win it in the air, he can win it out in front, he can tussle for a ball, a 50-50 ball that's coming in, maybe not where the service isn't of the highest quality, and Con offers that. They didn't really have any other sort of a player, bar maybe Kieran Kilkenny if they played him in the full forward position, but he was played a little further out the field for the duration. In hindsight, Desi Farrell should have started Paddy Small, because he had a big impact, and obviously he won that big ball in the air that was sent into him by Fenton that led to the free that Dean Rock kicked to equalise things. And even in his heyday, Dean Rock wouldn't have been the sort of player that was out in front winning the first ball. He was the guy that you needed for the second ball.
Yeah.
And how many brilliant scores have we seen Dean Rock score coming around on the loop after somebody else has got out in front to win that ball that was bounced gently and well measured into a forward's hands. The problem is they didn't have that type of player that would allow Dean Rock to get himself into those sorts of positions. And they persisted with the three players standing on the edge of the square, none of them making a run outside, and that is the reason why whenever a half forward or midfield player or indeed wing back looked up, there was just nothing for them to kick the ball into. So they had to revert to a running game, which they did pretty well in the second half and had Kerry on the run, but they do need Con spearheading that attack, and they do need another couple of forwards, like even guys that, the likes of Paddy Andrews, who would have delivered that sort of a role over the years. Niall Scully's form seems to have dropped off a cliff. He did not look confident when he came on in the second half, and you would feel he's good enough to be starting if he's showing any kind of form at all. So they probably performed better in the championship than many of us would have anticipated. They have potentially run the All-Ireland champions to a point. Obviously Galway will feel they have a big say of that, and they're never going to be too far away. But the drop-off in 2 years has been absolutely huge. There's no question about that.
Yeah. Where are we going next, Rich?
We'll get some reaction from that game. Sean O'Shea's 50-metre free saw Kerry beat Dublin in stoppage time to set up an All-Ireland final date with Galway. The Kingdom beating the Dubs 114 to 113. O'Shea's monster free was Kerry's third point of a half an hour in which they ceded ground to the Dubs, and Aisling O'Reilly asked Jack O'Connor after the game if the Kerry manager could stomach watching that kick.
Oh, I was preparing for extra time because I didn't think it was kickable, but he proved me wrong. A fair man.
And are you happy that it ended in the normal time rather than going to extra time?
Yeah, look, our bodies were getting tired and we weren't sure that we had enough in the tank to get us through extra time. Just delighted to finish it.
Colin Boyle, Brian Sheehan on the show later on.
Novak Djokovic, meanwhile, says he's hoping for some good news from the United States as he looks to level Rafa Nadal's Grand Slam record inside this year. The Serb won his fourth Wimbledon title in a row yesterday with a 4-set victory over Nick Kyrgios. It's his 7th Wimbledon title in all and the 21st of his career. However, immigration laws currently in place mean Djokovic cannot enter the States for next month's US Open as he remains unvaccinated against COVID-19. The 35-year-old wants to play at the season-ending Tour Championships in Turin in November as well, and was asked about his forthcoming schedule, or lack thereof, after yesterday's final.
I am on vacation. Whether or not I'm playing any tournament soon, I'll definitely be resting for the next couple of weeks because it has been a quite exhausting and demanding period for me in the last few months. A lot of tennis, which I was very happy about, and I got what I wanted here. And then I'll wait, hopefully, for some good news from USA, because I would really love to go there, and that would be probably the next big tournament, the next big swing, playing a tournament or two before US Open and US Open. If that doesn't happen, then I have to see what the schedule will look like. To be honest, I doubt that I'll go and chase points, as I understand from my agent today, that winning Grand Slam will qualify you for World Tour finals unless you're out of top 20, which I don't know. I mean, with accumulated points so far, I guess I'll make top 20. I guess I have a good chance to be already in the final, so I will not burden myself to really have to go and play, tournaments and get points.
I hadn't realised actually the US still had a immigration situation with unvaccinated, people, certainly sports people as well. So we'll talk to Caitlin Thompson about that. She's with us this hour to reflect on Wimbledon generally. Rich, you have some reaction from New Zealand?
Yeah, Andy Farrell says Peter O'Mahony is on track to play in Saturday's decisive third test with the All Blacks. According to the head coach, O'Mahony has passed his second HIA with a third still to come. Keith Earls, meanwhile, will captain Ireland for tomorrow's midweek game with the Maori All Blacks in Wellington. The Munster man is named in midfield, along with Ulster's Stuart McCloskey. And Farrell says the players named to start tomorrow morning's game are chomping at the bit.
Yeah, there's always going to be disparities between that team and the test team that played at the weekend, because it's when you put 2 or 3 kids into a good side, say the test side, then everyone gets dragged along. But when you put everyone in together, that's not really had that type of experience. Then obviously cohesion's is very hard to come by. But they've had 10 days to learn all those lessons and be more disciplined, be more accurate. Make sure that they're not too desperate and understand what it takes to win a big game, and this certainly is a big game for them on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I guess it is in many ways. They look like a scratch side who hadn't played together, which was basically because they were a scratch side who hadn't played together in the first match against the Maoris. So as Farrell says there, you would think time together on the training pitch should improve things tomorrow. And then, of course, Dave, we have the piece de resistance on Saturday in Wellington. This should be a hell of a game. What struck you about Saturday, Test 2?
The thing that I will remember most on the test was just the confusion around the numbers with the officials in New Zealand in that period before half-time, because I was actually watching the New Zealand commentary, and I only saw glimpses of the game Saturday, so I watched the game back in full this morning on YouTube, and so I was listening to Sky Sport New Zealand, and they had absolutely no idea what was happening. I don't think Jakob Piper knew what was happening. Yeah. The New Zealand bench certainly didn't understand what the situation was. And so that certainly led to a really bizarre last 15-20 minutes in the first half. From an Irish point of view, their precision was, and their accuracy was massively improved, like scrum and lineouts. Set piece, which let them down so badly in the first test, they had tuned that really well, and they were able to launch some of their set plays off a really good line out and scrum. I thought Porter and Tyke Furlong stood up brilliantly again in the tight, but obviously in the loose. Porter was phenomenal getting his 2 tries. What a performance from Peter O'Mahony. Continually been written off by people, and yet something in the All Blacks seems to bring out the best in Peter O'Mahony. He had that great jibe to Sam Cane as well. I'm sure people might have picked that up on social media over the weekend as well, where a reference to Richie McCormack. And would they finally gone and done what no Irish side has done before? And people might point to a red card, but look, that's part of the game. That's New Zealand's issue. It was their ill discipline, and they didn't time that tackle very well. And again, people will throw the whole, well, it's not a World Cup semi-final, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy this for what it is. It's an Irish team in green making history. Yes, it's not where they want to be in a year's time. Few will remember this test with any degree of fondness if they meet the All Blacks in a World Cup quarter-final and take a spanking from them. Absolutely, that's goes without saying. But that doesn't mean you can't take joy out of what we saw on Saturday, an Irish team going where no Irish team has ever gone before.
You're a SH1T, Richie McCaw, is what Peter O'Mahony said to Sam Cane. I mean, that's quite the put down. What do you say back to that? It's tricky. You're slightly affronted. Ronan O'Gara was on the show yesterday. You can watch it back on YouTube, or you'll get it on the OTB Sports app as well, which is in your app store. He reckoned, Richie, that was as good a Sexton performance as Sexton has had, and Sexton's had quite a few good performances.
Yeah, again, much like when Peter O'Mahony gets written off, it tends to be when he steps up and makes those amazing performances. And similarly with the whole world and his granny saying that Jonathan Sexton should be playing the second test because of concerns over perceived head injuries or concussions. He goes in and puts a performance like that. And then I was listening to this morning, like there is a sense that Joey Carberry almost has to start this third test because he needs to be road tested at that level. But like, it's that thing of, we were talking about in the show last week, whereby yes, there is a sense that we do need to move on, or at least be preparing a successor. But you can't cast aside a player with that level of ability, with that level of game management, and that level of nous so readily. Just for the, like, everybody loves the new shiny thing, like absolutely everybody, and that's grand. But you can't toss aside something like that because just for the sake of it, and just because of vague concerns that aren't, grounded in any science or fact. He needs to play your best players, and right now he's still he's given me hope that they can still put in a performance at my age, but he's like still one of our best players, and that is something to be treasured, much like winning on New Zealand soil for the first time is.
Shiny old thing. He's our best. I mean, he's our best player. He just is. He's a freak of nature. Harry and Loud, was O'Shea's kick as good as Morris Fitz in Thurles 0-1? Well, don't make us pick a favourite child here. How can we split those two? I mean, there was obviously a certain finesse and prettiness, and outside of the boot is a beautiful thing. Fitzgerald, I mean, I don't know.
And it was to equalise as well.
Yeah, a bit
Kerry
more
were
pressure
gone if that ball doesn't go over the bar.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly sure there was nobody rattling the posts as well. I'm not sure if you saw that video that was doing the rounds that try and put O'Shea off. I'm not sure what use it would have done, but sure.
It's funny, because afterwards I was chatting to Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue here, and I was making the point. I had seen shots of like Kilkenny shaking hands with Jack O'Connor, and I was making the point to the lads. I was like, and another thing, wasn't it great to see the game played in the right spirit? And then about a half hour later I saw the shot of Comerford shaking the post, and I thought, okay. A few dark arts in there as well. There is a text in from Galway, Martin in Galway. That's it, lads. Keep big and Kerry up. What did they score in the second half? Tribesmen loving it. Keep up the Kerry have won it mantra. Suits Galway down to the ground. Monty and Galway. I don't think anyone's actually said Kerry have won it. We were reflecting. Although I do think Kerry have won it, Dave.
I think Galway really fancy their chances, and they have the sorts of players, particularly going forward, that will be able to do some real damage to a Kerry defence that has been very impressive all year. I think that goal from Costello is just the second goal from play that Kerry have conceded in 15 games in all competitions this season. So Jack O'Connor has really tightened things up at the back. And likewise, they have got some very accomplished defenders. Liam Silk did a brilliant job on McGuigan on Saturday, I thought, and Sean Kelly's a very convincing fullback, and they have guys who can break with speed as well in the wing back position. So it's it'll be interesting. I think Kerry will be a bit more direct. I couldn't believe the amount of times that Derry turned down the opportunity to pump the ball in on top of the Galway goalkeeper, who had an absolute nightmare against Armagh. They put Conor Glass in at the edge of the square for much of the game and never sent the ball into him. I mean, that was inexplicable. I don't understand what Rory Gallagher's thinking was behind that, unless he had asked them to do it and the players decided out on the field that wasn't going to be the case. But a Galway Kerry final has a real sense of tradition and aristocracy to it, and two counties that like to play the game in a certain way, and it's going to be a really good final. I can't wait for it. As a dub, obviously disappointed, but we're hugely looking forward to this. I wouldn't quite call it a 50-50 game. I think Kerry would be favourites going into it, but Galway will feel they have every chance. And what will it mean to Mayo fans? I mean, 89, 96, 97, they lose the All-Ireland finals. Galway rock up a year later, win the All-Ireland. Mayo lose the All-Ireland finals of 2012, 13, 16, 17, 20 and 21. Galway potentially rocking up in 2022 and winning an All-Ireland in their first final in 21 years. That would sicken the Mayo supporters again, yeah. There's something very impressive about Joyce and the way he's gone about his business, you have to say. We'll talk about that game in more detail as well after 9. Brian Sheehan and Colin Boyle are going to join us. Any thoughts on keepers coming up the field when there's no pace in the attack and things are stagnant and just hanging around waiting for a turnover? I mean, clear that one up for me, please, as well. Add off the ball on Twitter. I just don't understand it. Comer's finish, really brilliant as well. So Galway and Kerry will be discussed at length after 9. Rich, do you want to bring us a last story or two?
Yeah, Shamrock Rovers have received a twin boost ahead of the second leg of their Champions League qualifier in Malta. Manager Stephen Bradley has revealed that Jack Byrne and Graham Burke will both be involved against Hibernians. Rovers take a 3-0 lead into tomorrow evening's game following the first leg in Tala. Progress will guarantee them another 2 rounds in Europe. And Manchester United boss Eric Ten Hag insists Cristiano Ronaldo isn't for sale and remains in his plans for next season. The Portugal forward had reportedly expressed his desire to leave the Premier League club. Ronaldo's agent has also been sounding out interest in the 37-year-old, with Chelsea and Bayern Bayern Munich among those approached. Ten Hag has also confirmed Harry Maguire will remain as United captain for the forthcoming season, but United midfielder Andreas Pereira today completed a €10 million move to Fulham.
So that's an interesting line in Richie's piece there, Dave. Ronaldo's agent has been sounding out interest. They've checked with Chelsea and Bayern Munich. I can't think there is much interest beyond, obviously, the commercial benefits.
Yeah. Who wants to buy Ronaldo at this age with the money that he will be commanding? Any club with a really long-term project is not bringing Cristiano Ronaldo to the club. Maybe he wants one crack at the Champions League, but I mean, there's only 2 or 3 clubs that I would consider having a real shot at winning the Champions League next season. It's Liverpool, City, Bayern Munich, Real. I mean, the obvious ones, but he's not going to any of those clubs. PSG maybe, but I mean, they've already thrown an awful lot of money at Messi and then Kylian Mbappe in his new deal. There's nowhere for him to go. So they can sound out all they want, but I really do not see him having any other option bar staying at Old Trafford or taking a huge pay cut to go somewhere else.
Well, he's taking a pay cut to stay. That's the problem. It was buried.
Well, I don't think he's had any choice in that one, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like he's basically them not qualifying for the Champions League means he's taking a 25% cut in wages, and that's ultimately the reason why he wants out there. He's like, no, I want full money. So whoever's willing to give him that, and as Dave mentioned, there aren't too many candidates, is where he'll end up next. But he's running out of road.
Rich, people might be interested in Andy McEntee.
Yeah, he looks like making a swift return to inter-county management, and with Antrim. He ended his 6-year reign with Meath just a month ago, but is the Antrim Management Committee's preferred candidate to replace Enda McGinley. McEntee's appointment will be rubber-stamped at a county committee meeting tonight.
And Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, he's off to America again. He appears to be close to becoming the new head coach of DC United. The former Derby boss will return to the MLS side he played for between 2018 and 2019. Rooney left his role at Derby last month, having overseen a club which had struggled through administration, but he's now off to the States.
Okay, very good. Richie, thank you.
Cheers, lads.
Dave McIntyre, appreciate it, Dave. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.